forget, I did not realize when we were meeting yesterday that there was a time change last night, else we would have announced it. But my mother came to my rescue, else I'd be here at 11 instead of 10 probably. This morning we want to talk about the secrets to digestive wellness and how to have a thriving microbiome. So over the last couple days, you have learned a little bit about me. And before we start presentations, what do I like to have you do? Coconut stretch. Let's do it. Let's get that blood to our brain. So the reason we do this is to help get the blood circulating. And if the blood is circulating, everything's about circulation. So if we can get the blood circulating better, we'll actually retain this information more. So we want to come out into the aisle where we are free to extend our arms, and we will do a coconut. And if I stand over to the side, will I still be in the camera? Yes. Okay, there you go. All right, you ready? Here we go. C, O, C, O, N, U, T. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think we're to 9. 8, 9. Backwards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Big. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Other way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Balance check and around. And then down. 4 spot. 1 and up. 2. Do you feel your muscles from yesterday? I think that's 4. 5, 6, 7. Keep going. 8. Here it is. And 9. Good job. Give yourself a hand. I forgot my water. But if you didn't forget your water, grab some water. I think it's still in the car. I think we forgot to bring it in. All right. So now we are ready to utilize the keys to unlock the secrets of digestive wellness so we can experience a thriving microbiome. So if we want to be healthy, where does that begin? It begins in the mouth, okay? The Bible says out of the mouth comes both blessings and cursings. So we've been looking at a few texts that have been repetitious throughout this weekend, and this is one of them. Repetition deepens impression. We cannot have health without God. He is our health. He is our life, right? So God wants us to be in good health. He wants us to experience his health. So it says in Psalms 43:5, "Hope in God, for I shall yet praise him, who is the health of my countenance and my God." So that sounds like a pretty good starting place to me, to start with God. So how can we cooperate with God? Well, he actually has a saving health plan. What does God have? A saving health plan. And the saving health plan really works when you work his program. So we have a message for all the people, all the nations around the world, that is, as it reads on the screen, that thy way may be known upon the earth, your saving health among all nations. So this is a message that is going to go worldwide. And so the Bible is the best medical book. Why? It's written by the Creator. It's our manual. It's the saving health plan. And it's such a saving health plan that it teaches us how to live forever. There's no other medical book that can teach us how to live forever, right? All right. So because of that, Jesus says that the enemy, referred to in John 10:10 as the thief comes but for to, typo, that should be steal, not steak, and kill and destroy. I come that they might have life and that they might have it more abundantly. I really thought you guys would have laughed at steak up there, but it wasn't intentional, I promise. But anyway, for every truth of God, the enemy has a counterfeit. Whatever God has is what the enemy wants. There's nothing original with the enemy. He's simply a copycat. But he can't be the real deal, right? And so he has to masquerade. He has to kind of camouflage his message, try to make it look good through our senses. That's what he did with Eve, right? Yeah. So God has created us with natural physiology, and it requires good circulation. And we acquire our best circulation through the temperate application of the 10 essentials of health, which I don't have on the next screen, else I would click it. But who was not here yesterday or Friday? You guys were all. You weren't. I was thinking you weren't. So I'm sorry, but I do have a handout of the 10 essentials out in the, did you pick it up? Perfect. Okay. So that will give you a quick synopsis of it. Anyway, so these are 10 essentials of health that are scripturally based, that God has given us to experience our best health. And it all revolves around circulation, helping our blood function its best. The Bible tells us the life is in the what? It's in the blood, okay? So everything revolves around the blood. Jesus' blood covers us. Everything has a application that's going to point us to Jesus Christ, who is our life, right? All right. So circulation is required to have a thriving microbiome. And also, to help with that, he's given us a mouth, as you mentioned, and he's given us teeth, and he's given us a tongue. And all of those are important for our microbiome. In fact, we have a whole oral microbiome as well. And this is where it all starts. So once food goes into the mouth, what do we naturally start doing? Okay, we start chewing, and then the saliva starts coming out, which is important. It's the chewing process that actually gears up the entire digestive system to tell it, food is on the way. And so that chewing mechanism is going to be very important. Now, we talked about smoothies just briefly one-on-one yesterday. When you have a smoothie, it's important that you chew the smoothie. And I know that sounds kind of funny because the blender has already done the chewing for us. But if we don't chew, then we're not mixing it with that saliva. And that saliva is what helps the stomach do its job more efficiently. So if you're going to have a smoothie, then chew the smoothie, even though it's already chewed, just to try to mix it with that saliva, okay? This is going to aid in proper absorption of our nutrients and the assimilation of that into the blood and then into the system, into the cells, all right? So again, it comes down to a cellular issue. We want our cells to be fed. So that chewing ultimately is going to help feed our cells, okay? Now think about this. We have a digestive system that is incredible. We are indeed fearfully and wonderfully made. So consider, you breathe through your mouth, you eat through your mouth, you drink through your mouth, right? So the air goes to the lungs, the food and the liquids go to your stomach, and neither interfere with the other in most cases, unless something has gone wrong, right? That's pretty amazing, right? When we try to talk and eat and chew all at the same time, well, then sometimes we choke, right? Might be an indication we need to swallow before we talk. But so God has made us very well and has orchestrated how it's supposed to go, and we don't even have to think about it. When we swallow food, we don't have to say, okay, food, go over here so you don't go into the lungs. No, it's automatic. It's amazing, right? So once we lubricate that food with the saliva, then it can move through the system. If we have too much saliva, that would be lubrication, then that forces food out of the stomach too soon without properly being prepared. Too little saliva, and we have chances of choking, or further on down the digestive tract, we might get constipated. And so the digestive system regulates, as long as we don't have an autoimmune condition such as Sjogren's, then the digestive system will regulate this lubrication, this water, if you will, and help keep the intestinal tract moist and running smoothly. So at the end of the digestive tract, then nutrients are absorbed, the final nutrients, your vitamin Bs, we'll talk about it here in a minute, and then the waste product is excreted. So if we are eating appropriately, then the waste is going to be excreted smoothly and easily. So the digestive system has enzymes that are excreted through those salivary glands, and it's excreted at just the right time in just the right amount to break down the food and to help with that lubrication process. And every particle of that food needs that lubrication. So that's why when we have the smoothie, we're still going to chew. Okay? So these enzymes are going to help with carbohydrates, proteins, and fats, and then they're going to mix with powerful acidic juices in the stomach and to help process these three macronutrients, the protein, fat, and carbohydrates. So if it wasn't for the mucus in the stomach, then these digestive juices would actually eat through the stomach. But at just the right time, then the stomach is coated with all this mucus, which won't allow it to break through. Now, if you have a pyloric, no, what do you call it? When you have a hole, what is it? An ulcer, a peptic ulcer. So if you have an ulcer in your stomach, thank you, then that mucus isn't functioning correctly. So it tells you where the problem is, right? And so we can figure out, if we have a diagnosis, then we can figure out what we need to do to fix the problem, all right? So all this happens again simultaneously, and ultimately it's going to help our nutrients get absorbed appropriately without the breakdown of the tissues around the digestive organs. So again, as the waste is created or passed on, there's waste that's constantly hitting the end of the digestive tract. But it just doesn't come out, right? Instead, there's provision for it to be collected, and at a periodic voluntary time, you will evacuate, right? And so this is cool, because else we'd be walking around with bags, right, all the time. And some people have to do that, and that's nothing against them. There's colostomy bags that make provision for that. But in a working system, God has created us to be able to hold that waste until a specific time where we will eliminate it. So the body handles all these things very efficiently, very elegantly, without us really even thinking about it. So Psalms 139:14 tells us we are indeed fearfully and wonderfully made. And we should consider this often, because God is our good and great God, and he only has our best interest in mind. So digestion is actually one of the hardest things for the body to perform. It requires a great deal of energy, and even more so when it's given foods that are nutrient deficient or improperly chewed, or unhealthy, heavy, fatty foods, too large of a quantity, or fed too frequently. So that just gave you the outline of where we're going today. Okay, we're going to talk about each one of those. So just like everything else in the body, the digestive system loves to have a schedule, specific times of when it's going to work and specific times of when it's going to rest. So if we want to be healthy, then we need good and proper digestion. You can probably finish this sentence. We are only as healthy as the food we eat, true, as our gut is healthy, okay? So everything revolves around the blood ultimately, but to get it to the blood, it has to be digested, and that's what happens in the gut. So if the gut is not healthy, our blood is not going to be healthy, right? That makes sense, because we got to get the nutrients from the digestive tract to the blood, okay? Excuse me. How many of you enjoy eating? Okay, a few of you did not raise your hand. I'm going to assume that you really do enjoy eating. Most of us do enjoy eating. There's a few people, unfortunately, who are born without taste buds. They really do not enjoy eating. It's something that they have to do with no pleasure, except a ritual. I feel sorry for those people. I enjoy eating. And so if you didn't raise your hand, I do hope that you enjoy eating and you're not one of those who don't have taste buds. But God wants us to enjoy our food, and therefore he has given us taste buds. In fact, who would like to venture a guess as to how many taste buds he has put on our little tongue? Take a guess. Not you, Marty. He's grinning from ear to ear. Thousands, okay. Any other guesses? 10,000? Okay, well, correct and almost correct. 100. Okay, that's a good guess too. It's actually 9,000, so just 1,000 over, but never know, maybe there's a few extra thousand in there for some of us. But on average, as far as we know, it's 9,000 taste buds. That's a lot of little taste buds on that little bitty tongue, isn't it? All right. So again, digestion begins in the mouth. Once food enters the mouth, we start chewing, and chewing allows for that saliva and the digestive organs to gear up. So the more we chew our food, the better. So let's take a look at that. What are some of the benefits of chewing? So chewing improves digestion. We're going to have better nutrient absorption, better nutrient uptake, and better nutrient assimilation. So ultimately, chewing is going to strengthen our immune system. And if our immune system is working well, then it can attack all those little things that we don't want in our body and eliminate them from our body, and we will be healthy. All right? So chewing actually helps us have a stronger immune system. That's a pretty good incentive for chewing, don't you think? I hope so. All right, so chewing also helps us appreciate our food better. It helps regulate our appetite. It decreases cravings, gas, bloating, bad breath, and actually can help us with weight management as well. So chewing our food twice as long as we usually would can actually decrease the amount of calories we take in by 10%. And that is because we're giving our brain time to say, I've had enough. So it takes, doesn't matter how many calories you consume, it takes the brain about 20 minutes for that signal to start firing. So how long does it take for the brain to say, I've had enough? 20 minutes, okay, from your first bite. However, we can desensitize that signal so that it no longer fires and tells us we've had enough. And we do that by chronically overeating or chronically eating, such as grazing throughout the day, eating without having a break. So continual snacking or even snacking alone actually disrupts this whole system, doesn't let the brain fire the way it needs to give you the proper signals that it needs to. But I have good news for you, because we can retrain our brains. And do you know how quickly our brain will respond? Just take a guess at this. How long will it take for that signal to wake up once you start cooperating with God in his health plan? Exactly. Boom. 3 days. Our body runs on 3-day cycles. If you do something consistently for 3 days, the body's going to respond to that. There are a few systems in the body where we run on 7 days, but there's a lot of systems. You got little kids, do something consistently for 3 days, they're on it. That's all it takes, but you got to be 3 days with consistency, and then they change. We saw that a lot. I only had Dawn for 5 years, but I could guarantee if we messed up, we were going to pay for it for 3 days because it was going to take 3 days to get back onto the cycle that we needed for, So the brain's going to wake up. It's going to tell you, I've had a sufficiency. If you continue to eat at appropriate times, in appropriate amounts, and what is that appropriate amount? 75 to 80% full, and then get up from the table. So if you feel full when you get up from the table, you feel very full 10 minutes later, don't you? Yeah. And so we want to actually stop before we get to that signal. I do a whole presentation, there isn't time for it here, but 3 men, 3 men coming in for a visit. And so we have Mr. Satiety, we have Mr. Fullness, and Mr. Comfortableness. And so you want to keep Mr. Comfortable around, right? You want Mr. Satiety to, let's see, what did I say? I said Mr. Fullness, which is satiety, sorry. Fullness and satiety are the same thing. Mr. Hunger. So Mr. Hunger, Mr. Satiety, and Mr. Comfortableness. So you want to keep him comfortable, and you want to have Mr. Hunger leaving while Mr. Fullness is coming. Anyway, it's a cute little presentation, but can't cover it today, and so it doesn't do it justice. So the point of this is to slow down, chew your food, enjoy that food, appreciate the true natural flavors that God has given us to enjoy. So once the food is swallowed, it enters the esophagus and then into the stomach, and the muscles of the stomach begin to churn that food and mix it with the gastric juices to get it to just the right pH. And this process takes between 2 to 4 hours for that food to get completely liquefied and to the right pH. And then there's a little opening at the bottom of the stomach. If you can actually read it on there, it's the pyloric sphincter. And that's going to allow little portions at a time into the intestinal tract. So how long do we really want the food to be in our stomach? That's what we're going to talk about next. So this is the transient time. Now it says there in the mouth 1 minute. That would be really ideal if we would chew our food for 60 seconds. That would be amazing, right? Most of us don't achieve that, but if we did, we absorb a lot of nutrients in our mouth as well. And so the more it's in our mouth, the better nourished we're going to be, because that can go directly into the bloodstream without going through the digestive tract. So again, that chewing, keeping that in the mouth is helpful. All right, so if it's a full carbohydrate meal, it's going to exit the stomach faster, because all the stomach has to do is get it to the right pH, and then it's out. So say in the morning you have cereal and milk and fruit. Milk is a carbohydrate, cereal is a carbohydrate, and fruit is a carbohydrate. So you chew it, you swallow it, the stomach churns it up. 2 hours later, it's out, it's gone, and you're hungry. Have you ever experienced that? Yeah. So we need some fat and we need some protein in there, which are digested in the stomach. That's going to slow down the rate at which that carbohydrate is going to be released into the intestines. That's where carbohydrates are actually digested, is in the intestines. And then the stomach can hold on to the food a little longer. You will be satisfied for a longer period of time. And so with that meal, you could add like nuts or seeds or something like this, and then like a 1/4 cup of that, and then that would extend it out. You could add some beans for breakfast over that toast or whatever, and that could extend that time in the stomach as well. So if you don't have a balanced meal with carbohydrate, protein, and fat, which all of those are dependent upon each other for proper digestion, then you're going to end up wanting to snack in between meals, and that could be problematic. What if we have too much in the stomach? What happens then? Well, then the body wants to draw from other organs so that it can address this onslaught in the stomach and take care of that, and then the other organs are going to suffer because it has to deal with this stomach issue that is overloaded, overtaxed, and that's going to clog the whole system if it's not dealt with. So we want to eat balanced meals. We want to eat a temperate amount without clogging the system. We want healthy food as well. All right, so once it leaves the stomach, then it goes to the small intestines, and that's where the majority of our micronutrients are picked up. So you have your vitamins, your minerals, things like this. Those are going to be picked up through those little hairs that we had mentioned before. That's where all of those nutrients, 90% of our nutrients, is absorbed through the small intestinal tract. Okay? Once it leaves the small intestinal tract, it goes to the large intestinal tract. That is where our B vitamins are absorbed. But B vitamins are a little tricky because, let's say, B12. B12 requires attaching to an intrinsic factor in the stomach. It must then go through the entire small intestine and large intestine intact with that intrinsic factor. And then in the large intestine, just before elimination, the B12 is absorbed. So what interferes with that bond? Snacking. As soon as we start snacking, that's separated. As soon as we overeat, it can't maintain that attraction anymore. So it's a very delicate cycle. And so this is why, above all other B vitamins, they will test you, or I hope your PCP, your general practitioner, doctor, will check your B12 on an annual basis. And if he or she doesn't, then ask them to do so. Normal is considered 200. We actually recommend over 400 because many people have symptoms under 400. And so while 200 is still considered normal, from my viewpoint, 400 is the bottom of normal. So you want it above 400. And so you can take a supplement. If you do take a supplement, B12 is actually a bacteria. It's not actually a vitamin, but they didn't know that when they named it, so it's called vitamin B12. But anyway, you want to take it as a liquid and hold it under your tongue for 30 seconds before swallowing, or you can get one that's dissolved in the mouth. You hold it in your mouth for 30 seconds, and then you're going to go ahead and chew it or swallow it or whatever you do. But again, that goes right into the bloodstream, and you don't have to be worried about that intrinsic factor being attached all the way through the digestive tract. Okay?
So then you don't have to worry about timing your other meals?
No. So, was there, yes?
You answered it.
That was the same question. Good, you guys are on the same wavelength. All right, so how long does it take for the stomach to empty? 4 or 5 hours. Okay, so it's around 4 hours, give or take a little bit, unless it's a carbohydrate meal only, and then it's going to be a little faster. But a general, healthy, balanced meal is going to take around 4 hours, but then the stomach needs a little rest, and then it can gear up for work again. So having 4 hours minimum between meals is going to be important. If we can give that stomach a little rest for like an hour before it needs to gear up again, or maybe 30 minutes, then we can, so 5 hours really is a good time frame between meals. Okay, and that's going to help develop a healthy microbiome. So let's imagine that Marty's at work, and so I'm just fixing for myself. I decide to fix a pot of beans. So I put in the water, I throw in my beans. Let's say I've already soaked them. And so Marty calls and says, I'm coming home for lunch. Okay. So I go ahead 30 minutes later, and I put in another handful of beans. And then 30 minutes later, Marty says, I'm bringing home some friends for lunch. Can you make sure there's enough for them as well? Okay, I throw in a couple more handfuls of beans. How well are my beans going to turn out? Not well. They're not going to be too well. That's right. All right, so they won't turn out. And that's exactly what happens when we're continually putting food into our stomach between meals. So let's see this from a scientific standpoint, because there was some really awesome research that was done on what happens when we graze or when we interrupt the stomach's digestion by eating between meals. So the volunteers for this were paid subjects, and they were given a breakfast of cereal, milk, bread with butter, fruit, and an egg. And then scans revealed that this meal emptied the stomach typically about 4.5 hours later. Okay? So the next day, the test subjects were given the same original breakfast. Then 2 hours later, the subjects were given a soft serve ice cream cone, a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, or a glass of milk with pumpkin pie. And they had nothing else to eat after that for this day. And then scans revealed that after 6 hours, there was still a small residue of breakfast in the stomach with the ice cream group. So if you add that together, you have 2 hours that digestion started. Then you have an additional 6 hours. So 8 hours later, compared to 4.5 hours, right? There was still a small residue of breakfast in the stomach. What about the peanut butter and jelly sandwich? Now, let's think about the ice cream. It's mostly carbohydrate, right? And this is soft serve, so it doesn't really have a whole lot of fat in it, so it was easier to move on, right? So now we have peanut butter. Peanut butter, you've got what in there? Protein and fat, okay? So what happened? Well, after 9 hours, there was still breakfast, a significant amount of breakfast in the stomach. And what about the pumpkin pie and milk? Now what do we have? This was whole milk, by the way. So you have the fat, and you have quite a bit of fat, actually. You got the fat in the milk, but you have the fat in the crust, right, as well. And so over 9 hours of later, then the breakfast was still sitting in the stomach, and it had been in the stomach all day. So it was a large amount of breakfast that was still in the stomach. So the next day, they brought the subjects back and gave them the same original breakfast at 8 o'clock in the morning. Then an hour and a half later, they gave them a half a slice of bread with butter, and they continued to be given a half a slice of bread with butter every hour and a half, ending at 5 p.m., and they had nothing else to eat. And the scans revealed that more than half of breakfast was still in the stomach by 5 o'clock that evening. So then lastly, the volunteers were brought back, and they were given the same original breakfast, and then twice during the morning and twice during the afternoon, they were given a bite-sized piece. It was 2 bite sizes. I don't have that here. I have a bite size. Maybe it's because the picture I'm thinking 2 bite sizes. Anyway, a bite-sized piece of chocolate candy and nothing else to eat during the day. And at 9:30 that night, that's 13 and a half hours later, more than half of the breakfast was still in the stomach. So the food that remained in the stomach, they did testing to see what chemicals were produced by the partial digestion, and they found out that partial digestion actually had become toxic, and it had created chemicals such as aldehydes, esters, amines, and alcohols. None of that is pleasing to the body. It's toxic. We all know alcohol, right? We know that that's toxic to the system. Aldehydes, amines, and esters are not going to be our friends either. And so this was actually causing intoxication of the brain, the liver, the kidneys, and other delicate tissues. And so there was lots of inflammation, bloating, and heartburn. So here's a little graphic to help us out. We have a little breakfast. We have a little mid-morning snack. Then we have a little lunch, but the stomach is not emptying. Why? Okay. So we interrupted the digestive process. Why would this make such a difference? Because the stomach has to have it at the right pH before it's going to let little bits out, right? And so when we add new food in, that pH must reconfigure to get it to the right pH, get the new food caught up with the old food before it's going to open that pyloric sphincter and let little bits into the intestinal tract. Make sense? All right. So the food begins to putrefy, and we're not feeling so good. Why? We're not designed to eat rotten food. So the body is absorbing toxins instead of nutrients. And so when the food is passed on, then that's what we get to absorb instead. And so now this poor stomach is overworked, it's in distress. So how can we help this poor stomach? What's the remedy? Say it again. A pause, that's right. Work and then rest. Work and then rest, right? What about drinking with meals? That's a very important point. So we have this lubrication already for digestion if we don't have things like Sjogren's or something like this, okay? So let's assume that none of you have that. If you do, raise your hand and I'll adjust my talk accordingly. But we have this saliva that's produced, and that's going to help lubricate everything. If we're drinking water, is that going to be the same as our salivary gland juices? It's not. And so we're diluting those juices, and it's going to make it harder for the stomach to do its job. The stomach actually will get rid of that water first. Again, that food's going to sit there while the water is gotten rid of, and then it's going to continue on with digestion. So it's going to delay digestion.
So how long should you wait to drink?
That's a really good question, and there's lots of philosophies out there. I like to say generally keep it to an hour. There's others that say 2 hours. I'm not the criterion, so I tend to drink an hour after. But if you have digestive issues and you're drinking an hour after, you might try extending that to an hour and a half or 2 hours and see if that doesn't help you have better digestion. So again, I'm not here to say my way is the absolute truth, but I am saying not to drink with the meals, is going to be best. Let your body work with that fluid. Drink 15 minutes before. Again, that's debatable. Some people will say 30 minutes before, others will say an hour before. But I'm comfortable with 15 minutes. 15 minutes, the stomach is able to get that water out before you start eating.
So that's what my question was. How long does it take for liquids to exit the stomach?
Well, it depends what the liquid is, but when it comes to water, there's nothing really that the stomach needs to do to it. It can pass that on. It's not corrosive. Mucus is not built up in the stomach. It doesn't have to do much to the water to get it to pass along. So 15 minutes, I feel, is sufficient. And stop drinking 15 minutes before the meal.
After the meal, it depends on how much you drink as well. When you first start drinking, you just sip or you guzzle. There's a difference there.
Okay, so he's saying sip versus guzzling. So again, some people do have swallowing issues, and so taking small little sips because you don't have the saliva being formed or whatever, then sipping is going to be better than gulping. And then again, after the meal as well, you want to, if you do need to have some water, then take little bits instead of a large amount. Thank you. Any other questions? Yes.
This is only semi-related, but I've gotten in the habit of soaking some chia seeds in water. If I do that, is that like drinking water, or does that need to be digested? And when would I do that with a meal, or could I?
Yes. So you don't want to take the chia in between meals.
Don't take it to meals?
Not take it between meals. And when you soak something, you're leaching out nutrients into the water. And so you're changing the pH of that water as well. And so taking that with the meal is not going to be the same as drinking water with the meal. So we mix water with our food all the time, right?
Right, okay.
Yeah. So that's different. Yeah. So if we're having like really brothy stuff and it's too much liquid, because remember there's this delicate balance, well, then we might have an issue. But most of us are not going to just be drinking large amounts of liquid for our meal unless we're like juicing, and again, that's a whole different story, a different topic, everything. But you know, if you're just having soup and you have the vegetables in there with it, you're having what, cornbread or maybe crackers or a salad, or you know, something with it, then the body's able to handle that. Yes.
I'm just curious, I'm trying to understand, I'm a visual person, about the anatomy of what's happening in terms of the water being able to be released, but the food not. Is it that there's just a small opening, or is it an absorption through the membranes? Or
Yeah, so
basically having to let the water out, but not the, you know, acidifying
yeah.
food out.
So if you have water in the stomach first, okay, it's in and out. It's not going to take very long to get into, maybe 15 minutes to get into your system, okay? If you have water and you're drinking, let's say 8 ounces, then, and there's food on board, then it's going to have that mucus. Ideally, it's going to form some. And in the process, it's going to hold on to the food, let the fluid out because it's too much fluid. So it'll just let little bits out, but it's not going to let the food out with that, okay? They're bigger amounts. The liquid's liquid, right? So it's easy.
Sense to drink your 8 ounces of water 15 minutes before you have a meal then?
Yes.
Just get your liquid
Yeah.
hydration.
Yeah, and if you need to take medication or something, as long as it can be taken 15 minutes ahead of time, then do that.
And then you're not having to wait an hour or 2 hours.
Right.
So you're staying hydrated. To get your water intake throughout the day.
Oh, okay, right. So you still want to wait an hour afterwards. Yeah, and then, so, you know, if we are drinking water throughout the day, and we should be except for meal times and sleeping time, obviously, then it's not going to be too hard to get in all the water that you need for the day. So 16 ounces in the morning, we want to flush in the morning to flush out whatever toxins the body has confined to be eliminated, right? That's what happens, by the way, while we're sleeping, is if stomach digestion is completed, and if we are asleep by 10 o'clock, the liver will do a nightly detox. So plug to go to bed early. You need to be asleep by the time 10 o'clock. And right now you're in the flux of where 10 o'clock really is, so it'd be more like 9 o'clock, I guess, at this point, right? No, which way did we go? Yeah, so 9 o'clock, right? I don't know. 11 o'clock. So it's 11 o'clock. So you get an extra hour for a nice transition. I don't know. You guys figure it out. So my point was water. That's what we were talking about. So if you are getting 16 ounces in the morning, that's just going to be a flush out the kidneys, flush things out of the system. After that, if you drink 2 to 4 ounces every 30 minutes. You might need more with exercise too. I exercise in the morning. If you exercise in the morning, you'll need more water during that time. But let's say 2 to 4 ounces every 30 minutes. That's going to give you 8 ounces every hour, and except during meal times. And so if you calculate that out, you'll easily get in 8 cups of water. Does that make sense? Any other questions, comments? Okay. Say it again? Yeah, so you can use body weight as a marker in most cases. If someone is, say someone's 400 pounds, we're not going to ask them to drink 200 ounces, right? So up to a point we can do that. So I'm 140 pounds. I just put that out online, I guess. And so half of my body weight would be 70 ounces, and I need more than that. I'm more active, and so I'm not going to run well on just 70 ounces. So take it into consideration. So the formula, if we're using body weight, is half of your body weight in ounces is the minimum amount of water that you're going to want to take in. And for me, that's going to have to be more than that.
Dana, what is your opinion on the theory that's been out for, I guess, almost a decade? Drink when you're thirsty.
Yeah, so when you're thirsty, it's too late.
Yeah, that's what I thought. You know,
Yeah, so what I mean by that is the body's already experiencing some dehydration by the time you're thirsty. And so you really want to have a schedule, have a bottle of water with you. You don't necessarily want to sip on it just constantly because there is a microbiome in your mouth as well. And what some people are finding is that their teeth, a little, depending on the water that you drink, a little bit of your teeth can actually start breaking down with that water. And if you're sipping on it constantly, then the microbiome doesn't have an opportunity to regain. So at first we were saying every 15 minutes, and that was coming from Duke University. We have now changed that to every 30 minutes. And so that allows the microbiome to repair whatever might have the micro changes in the mouth. So now we say every 30 minutes instead of every. Before we were saying every hour, right? Just 8 ounces every hour, guzzle it down, right? Well, we weren't getting it into the tissues at the cellular level. And so then that's when we switched to the 15. Now we're back to 30. So, here we go. Yes.
what do you think about adding sea salt or lemon juice to water?
Okay, so lemon juice I think is great. So again, that's very similar to the stomach pH, so you're really not interfering with anything there. Plus, it's a very nice cleanser. What about a little salt? So if you're drinking distilled water, then adding a little Celtic salt or just 1 or 2 kernels, it's not much, can make a difference and help it be absorbed a little bit better. So again, this is more recent research showing how we absorb the water best. So both of those are nice. Is it necessary? Probably not unless you're chronically drinking distilled water. 1 or 2 kernels in distilled water. Anything else? Yes.
One more thing on the water. But I do have a different theory on like the salt, the mineral things in our water intake. But I'm wondering where you get your idea of just 16 ounces in the morning.
No, you can do more. I have people who struggle just to do 16.
Yeah, because I just wondered. Yeah, I know I don't do more than 16 or 17 ounces, but I have a friend that does those 32 ounces, and she swears by it, but I can't do that.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, if you can actually do more, it's not a problem first thing in the morning. But you certainly don't want to do that later in the day because the kidneys can only absorb 12 ounces, 8 to 12 ounces an hour. And so anything above that is going to be a flush. So that's why the 16, because we want that flush in the morning. But we don't want it later in the day because then guess what? At some point, the body's going to have to process that, and when's it going to do it? At night, and you're going to be up, okay? So you want to make sure that either you're working hard and sweating out that extra water, or that you're sticking to 8 to 12 ounces max per hour.
You mentioned that lemon would be acceptable within that. What about an herbal tea,
Yeah.
caffeinated tea?
Yeah. No caffeine, but no sugar, no sweeteners. But yeah, that would be fine too. So I'll tell you, yesterday I was telling you about my little regime I was doing for a cavity that I may have had, and it included drinking nettle tea. And so I was like, well, the more nettle tea, the better. Nettle is a wonderful remineralizer. So, and it helps with hair and nails and, you know, all of us lady stuff. So I was like, well, I'm just going to drink nettle tea as my water. A bad idea. Because when we have too much mineral, we actually get cramps as well as when we have too little minerals. And so I was waking up with serious leg cramps. I finally figured out, you know, I'm not actually getting enough water. I'm getting all the minerals and all that, and it's too much for my system. I switched back to water and just tea in the morning and evening. Sometimes I did have a third one, but after that, that's all I had, and I didn't have any more cramps. So, you know, lesson learned. Everything needs to be done with temperance, and we can overdo. So consider that too with the lemon. So I'm an individual who can't do a lot of lemon water. I like it, but it doesn't like me. And so my symptom with lemon water is I'll start cracking my lips, or I'll start getting red around here. So you might be an individual like that as well. So not everything works for everyone, right? And so consider your body first and the response that it's giving you as to whether that's going to be appropriate for you or not. Okay? All right, so back to this. We're going to wrap it up because we got to get downstairs for our cooking demonstration. We have to be out by 1:30, so we got to stick to the schedule. The point here is we want a break between our meals. So we want the digestion to be able to be completed, and then we want to have a rest. And we definitely want that to happen in the evening because we want digestion to be done so we get that evening detox. So that's why breakfast is called a breakfast. It's actually spelled what? Break fast, right? That's where the name originates from. We fast during the night, and during that time we go through this nightly detoxification process. Very important for us because that's going to improve our immune system. We have less toxins. The toxins that we just naturally absorb through breathing, through the foods that we might be eating, or whatever chemicals we come in contact with, whatever, the body can handle that. It can encapsulate it in fat, and we lose weight during the night because we burn fat throughout the night. And when we burn the fat, that releases the toxins and they go downstream, and that's why we want that flush in the morning. All right, we're going to skip that because of our time. We already talked about 90% of our nutrients are absorbed in the stomach. What did I say? Gut. Sorry. Yes, small intestine. I think we already talked about that. Body can't digest food and detox at the same time. That's why you want to go to bed on an empty stomach in order to get that detox effect. All right, and then the last part that we'll talk about is the colon. That's where our vitamin K, our vitamin B12, thiamine, other B vitamins are absorbed, and all the extra water before elimination. So if we're eating a plant-based diet, then typically we're all a little different, so take that into consideration, but ideally we would have the food in and out within 24 hours. When we have a meat diet, that goes up to usually around 72 hours. So the longer it's in the colon, the higher the risk of colorectal cancers. And so you can check your transit time by eating fresh beets. They can be cooked, but fresh cooked beets, and you have that with your meal. You test when you begin to see actual beet. You'll see the liquid from the beets first, but then you'll see actual beet in the stool. You'll want to have a good serving of them. And then you will see when you stop seeing the beat, and then that's going to be your transit time. All right? So you can do that test on your own at home. We mentioned about overeating. Just because we're actually over time now, maybe don't overeat. The Japanese say, they have a little saying, Hiri Hachi Bu, stop eating when you're 75% full, and overeating overloads the whole system, and the system is more likely to break down when we overeat. So all our vitamins and minerals are dependent upon another vitamin or mineral for proper absorption. So you see that on the screen. I'm sorry I don't have time to spend more time on that. What are some things that disrupt the microbiome? Well, we've already talked about snacking and grazing, but sugar, animal products, sugar clogs the whole system, and animal products slow everything down. And so does stress. We talked about stress yesterday too, right? And so stress just puts knots, more or less, in our, and you feel it, right? When you're stressed, you know you don't digest food well. And so remember, God wants us to cast all of our cares upon him because he cares for us, 1 Peter 5:7. Alcohol, smoking, caffeine. We do a 10-day cleanse, Kickstart to a New You. The book's downstairs. And those who insist on keeping caffeine on board never, that's a strong word, never get the results that they were hoping for. Get rid of the caffeine before you start a cleanse, and you will have much better results. Of course, lack of sleep and sunshine and all the other 10 essentials of health are all important and work together synergistically to bring us health. Okay, last thing, digestive walk. Digestive walk is very important. What is a digestive walk? It's a stroll for 10 to 15 minutes after a meal. And so after you eat, if you'll just get up from the table, ideally go outside if weather permits, but if not, walk around your house. All of us have an area that we can walk, and if we don't, even just walking in place is going to help. This is like a massage to your intestinal tract, and it's going to help it be able to digest and assimilate those nutrients much better. And it will reduce the grogs after a meal, right? Nodding off. None of you do that, of course, but getting up and moving will help the body actually be able to assimilate the nutrients and digest the food better. You do not want to go out and exercise. This is not a cardiovascular event. This is a stroll. This is stop and look at the trees, the flowers, the stream, whatever you have around you. Enjoy the nature while you're out there. You're not trying to get in all your steps. You'll get in some, but it's not the time to get your heart rate up and pull the blood away from the stomach. You actually just want to help the stomach work better by improving circulation with a gentle stroll. Okay? All right, so with that said, I do want to also share with you some ways that you can help the progression of what has started this weekend. And so I want to tell you about our Energize and Thrive virtual retreat. This is a retreat online, and it's focusing on detoxifying and reviving energy. All right, so if you're struggling with energy, then this might be a way for you to jumpstart the process a little bit better. So we're going to help you improve glucose control, energy levels, sleep. We're going to be focusing on sleep as well. And so if you're craving some time to just unplug, clear the mind, refresh, and fill your spiritual cup, then join us for a 12-day experience into better health and vitality. So during the retreat, we're going to dive deep into God's healing program. and we will be using biblically based techniques, and it'll be a lot of fun, and we'll enjoy some really good food, and we will personalize it for you as well. Of course, you get to enjoy this in the comforts of your own home. By the end of the retreat, you will have detoxified your digestive organs, your liver, your gallbladder, your kidneys, and your skin. So we'll have a good time doing that. And you will be able to absorb energy, nutrients again and start feeling good. We do send you a care package with the essentials and the harder to find items that you will need for the retreat. It starts next Sunday, so there isn't much time for you to join. In fact, the cutoff day is today, sorry, but that's just the way it landed. I do need a week to be able to get you everything that you need. And so if you do want to pursue this a little bit more, you can talk to me downstairs at the table. But lots of good stuff. We also have a Start a New You program. This is an online program which can help you get your energy back. It's a slower progression than a 12-day immersive, but imagine having your energy back, being able to get down on the floor to play with your kids, and reaching your feet to tie your shoes, all without pain. So whether you have diabetes, high blood pressure, autoimmune conditions, the Starting New You program is going to help you lay a foundation for healthy living and a lifestyle that's going to help you embrace health and conquer disease. So again, we actually guarantee results with that. It is a 12-month program. You'll be working through trainings. As you work through those trainings, you will also have live coaching with me, as well as private coaching, exercise and cooking videos, text support throughout the entire 12 months as well. And you can get started with that for only $97 a month, or $997 if you want to pay for it in full, which will basically give you 2 months free. And if you're interested in that, we can do a free interview, make sure that this is the right program for you. We also have 3 books available. Kickstart to a New You, that is our 10-day cleanse. To go along with that, we have a Start a New You Reflections, which is a spiritual and health devotional. It has my story in there as well, and that's at the beginning, and then it goes into the 10 essentials, and it's going to help you release the burdens of the past, let go of negativity, and achieve the goals through cooperating with Jesus Christ, and live a very peaceful, happy, authentic life with lots of energy and enthusiasm. Then, of course, we want you to be able to take the next step. All 3 of these books are included in my Start a New You program in a digital format, by the way. But if you are ready to take the next step beyond the 10-day cleanse, then the Start a New You cookbook is going to help you in the journey, continue your wellness program, help you reduce medications if you're on medications that you want to get off of course, sleep and move better as well. So help you get rid of the chronic diseases that are complicating your life and be able to go walking with Christ in the health that he desires for each of us. We can achieve our best health through Jesus Christ. So food can prevent and cure disease, but it can also cause disease. So the best diet is not one that includes a little of everything, but it avoids that which is harmful and makes moderate use of that which is beneficial. So there's menus, there's grocery list. You can check it all out downstairs. Let's save the questions for while we're doing our cooking class so that we can relatively stay on time to be out for the next program that begins at 1:30. So let's transition to downstairs and